I'm lazy. So I figure out how to set up a tank so it does not require any more help. That will become healthier the longer it exists. So the revolution is all about experiencing the aquarium organically as a living environment. Well, hello. Come right up. We're engaged in a revolution. It's pretty obvious to some that we are, and others feel like the revolution is really a catastrophe because it's not what they believe the hobby ought to be doing. But then that's the nature of revolution, isn't it? There are those who just want to keep things the way they are, and others who want to say, we're going to change it all. Now, if we're going to change it for the sake of some pie-in-the-sky idea that we have that will make life a bowl of cherries, that's called communism. That's throwing everything up in the air and saying we're going to abandon everything we know to be true for the sake of this wonderful idea that John down the street had, that we can all somehow live a life of utter perfection. Yeah, that ain't what it is. That ain't what it is. It's more a civil war, I guess, than it is a revolution. The difference being that in a civil war, you've got warring factions who want to keep things just the way they are, and others who want to get back to basic principles. That's a big difference. That's not holding to some unrealistic ideal that it will not be achieved without substantial chaos. It's more like you guys are screwing up. You know you're screwing up. You know you're messing up. You know what you're doing doesn't work, and it's because you're ignoring basic principles. Now, what every one of them will say is, oh no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm adhering to basic principles. And they're not. What they're adhering to is the marketing strategy of those who have discovered a way to make a buck on doing things a certain way. And they teach that as the very best and only and right way, and everything else is stupid plan. So that's the nature of the Civil War. It's a war between back to basics, basic principles, and but we should do it this way because the guys who have got all the money in the game say we should. Well, there you have it. I mean, it's kind of the bottom line, isn't it? Kind of where it's at. Okay, so basic principles. What is this basic principle business? My canary is chiming in. He's got something to say about it. Well, I'll tell you what it is for me. Basic principles for me is MTS. It's multiple tank syndrome. It's wanting to have as many tanks as I can possibly jam in, here, there, and everywhere. And more than that, have each of these tanks functioning in a way that the fish living in them are healthy and happy. Now, there are some people doing that. LRB is doing that. He's got countless tanks. He set up, God knows, maybe 1,000 tanks altogether. And they're amazing. I've done that. I had 400 tanks in my shop set up as standalone stable environments that required little or no intervention. So What's the key factor that drives that? Well, first of all, it is the utter fascination with the tank. It is, I remember having a conversation about this when I was 16 with a friend of mine. We both had tanks. And we tried to figure out what it was, drew us to them, that made it so compulsive. And we never got an answer to it because it's more emotional than rational. It's hard to put it into words. But it's been there with me my whole life. I mean, I have spent, of my 83 years, easily 70 of those years collecting fish tanks, and screwing up royally over and over again, but never making the same mistake twice deliberately, learning each time, growing through that each time. So 90% of the people who run into my channel just adore it. 10% consider it a demonic influence. It is the most evil thing that's ever happened in their life. Now, one of the criticisms that some of those folks throw at me is that I'm lazy. And they're right. They're right. I'm lazy. It's not so much that I'm not willing to put 40 hours a day into maintaining fish tanks. It's that I can't. I can't. And yet I want 40 hours worth of fish tanks. So what I do is I figure out, and I've worked on this for a lot of years, figuring out how to set up a tank so it does not require any more help. It'll just kind of carry on with a minimum of effort. That's how you solve the MTS, multi-tank syndrome. That's how you can have lots and lots of tanks like LRB and not drive yourself crazy trying to maintain them all, running around like a madman. The guys who are doing water changes in every one of their tanks every week are by God limited on what they can do. There just aren't enough hours in the day. Well, I don't want that limitation. I want to be able to have 1,000 fish tanks. Now, number one, I don't have a place for 1,000 fish tanks, so I can't. Right now, I have 7 tanks in this little room, and this is the only room I have where I can put fish tanks. So in that sense, I'm not lazy, but I just don't want to have to spend a lot of time on any one tank because I want to have a lot of tanks. So how do you do that? How do you do that? How do you make that happen? Well, there are a lot of different ways that you can do it, but my goal is to do it in a way that makes it as healthy as possible and that allows it to become healthier the longer it goes along. Because what I've noticed is I've spent as much time out in the wilds, in creeks and bays and woods and whatnot, spent as much time out there as I have puttering in fish tanks, probably more actually. And I've noticed something about nature, that nature takes care of itself. It becomes healthier, doesn't become sicker. A natural environment is constantly healthy. Something may happen to it that's a catastrophe, a bad storm or a spill or something terrible, and it'll struggle through that, but it'll come back from it, and it'll get better, and it'll thrive again. It's been my goal then to achieve that very characteristic in an aquarium. To set up an aquarium that will become healthier the longer it exists. And I've done it. But one of the criticisms that some pretty high-level people have registered about what I'm doing is, well, it just takes so long. And you know, they're right. It takes a long time. But if you've got things set up so that it allows for a long time, like putting sand rather than gravel, it takes a long time for detritus to work its way through sand. It'll go through gravel in a minute. It takes a year for that mold to go through sand. Maybe not a year, maybe 3 months, but not a minute. So it takes a long time. In the process of that long time, there is a stability that occurs. Look at nature, look at your aquarium. And what you notice is there's a timelessness about it. It's not rushing on into anything. It's not trying to get something done. It seeks its own stability at every single moment. And yet, with the passage of time, there is a balancing that occurs and a cycling that occurs, a process that's put in place that allows everything to kind of be mixed in with everything else and then come out in a different way. Now, you don't see that in a minute. You don't see it in a day. You don't even really see it in a year, but you'll see it in 5 years. It takes about 5 years for a natural aquarium to fully balance itself to the point where everything is cycling. So I make sure that the substrate has everything it will ever need in order to maintain a fully developed, fully healthy balance of all of the organic and inorganic stuff that's going on. Every plant will always have everything it needs to thrive, to the best of my ability to provide it. And I provide a lot, not in huge quantities, in small quantities, because large quantities aren't needed. Small quantities are needed. Plants are amazing things. They work in simpatico with the rest of their environment. When a plant needs to grow roots, it secretes a hormone that triggers bacteria, certain bacteria that then produce exactly what the plant needs to grow its roots. A different one for stem, for leaves, for flower. And it does all of that naturally, automatically, as needed. So if the material the plant is growing in has everything that will be needed, it'll be able to grow perfectly naturally, perfectly healthfully. Somebody said to me recently, your plants are not big and beautiful and bountiful. And I knew exactly what they meant, because my plants are not fertilized. Fertilizer causes certain aspects of the plant to grow just to explode, like the leaves, causes leaves to explode. But it's not a natural kind of growth. It's not the kind of growth that occurs in nature without those fertilizers. It's not what the plant would otherwise do if it could avoid doing that. So yeah, but then I said back to him, I consider my plants just as beautiful as yours. You're just looking at them with a different eye than I am. Well, of course, he didn't get it. It's the timelessness of it that is important to me. Knowing that if I do the basics that I need to do, like with this tank that has the Valentes in it, if I put food in there for them every day and build up that foundation to the point it may take a couple of months to get it built up enough for it to be thriving with life. Eventually, I'll be able to cut back on the amount of macroorganisms and microorganisms I'm putting in there, because the tank will take on more ability to generate that fauna on its own. Now, at that point, the tank might become too small for the 25 fish I have in it. So I may need to remove some. We'll see how it goes. But right now, everything is fine and solid and stable. I would like to have more plants in it. So, the revolution is all about experiencing the aquarium organically as a living environment that has a lifespan that will go on as long as I do. So it grows, it thrives, it changes over the years, but it's a companion, and it becomes an old friend. And that's what I do. That's the hobby for me. That's what I'm doing in the hobby. And I'm sharing that as best I'm able and learning how to do it better and better and teaching that. So there are those who cherish it. There are others who don't. And that's fine. That's fine. I just want to get this story out, because I think a lot of people are hungry for it. I think there are a lot of people who have stumbled and fallen and really want to be able to do this and just haven't got a handle on how to make it happen. And this is a handle on how to make it happen. So come on along. Join our show. It's the best way in this world to get to know people who are doing it and to learn about it. It's not just one thing to do. You don't just go out and dig up some dirt and throw it in a tank, throw some sand on top. That won't work. You'll be successful 50% of the time, but it's not going to have any real permanence to it. There's a right way to do this. There's a way we've developed to do this that works better. And you can help us improve that. It's not right and wrong. It's better and better. So join us. Be part of the revolution. Be part of the process of this falling in love with your aquarium and making it a real friend. Love you all. Bye for now.